Good morning, good evening,
Hey,
good afternoon, everybody, wherever you are. It is 4:20 somewhere in the world. This is the Pop Buddy Podcast. I am your producer, Sam Wu, here with Cannabis Bill, somewhere live in Warren County. We'd like to welcome everybody to the Pop Buddy Podcast. I'd like to say hello to our new friends that we met down in Trenton last Thursday. We got Lefty, we've got Jim, we've got Ken, all sorts of people that we met. And also our new followers. We got new followers that now follow us on our Pop Buddy Podcast social media pages. Bill, this is going to be a big vote next week. We've got lots to talk about
that's right.
episode 6, the New Jersey legalization vote on November 3rd. I already mailed in my ballot in that little secure stainless steel contraption. I just put it in there, and I thought to myself, the guy in front of me that put in his vote was driving a beautiful Maserati. I was right behind him, and then when I put my vote in, I realized my vote is as equal as his.
Where was that box at?
In an undisclosed location in the region where I vote. Somewhere in New Jersey.
Because the box down the road from me is a bunch of pickup trucks pulling in, all the farmer guys out here. So you go to the Dunkin' Donuts up the street, there's like 14 pickup trucks in one car. So, out here in Warren County, there's no Maseratis.
I can't disclose it
You know.
because I'm locked in the bunker.
Well, Sam, 4 days, about 8 hours and 30 minutes, I would say, about right now from 420, when maybe, as I'm praying and I really feel good about, I might be popping champagne, that cannabis is legal in New Jersey from the great voters of the Garden State. So very big 4 days to go. We've got to tell everybody who hasn't voted already. Most of the folks I've talked to have already attended the little metal box outside their municipal building and threw their ballot into it. But if anybody out there hasn't voted, or if you know any of your friends or family, if you don't mind calling them, this is the time. A couple days before, just ask them, do you guys vote yet? And if not, can you please vote for yes on question 1 on the back of your ballot? Very important. Even if anybody's out of state, if you know somebody in New Jersey, now's the time. We have a few days left just to push this over the edge. And I believe it will go, but every little push can help.
Every indication says that it will go through, but you don't know till you get there. So don't waste your vote. Vote yes. Just flip the ballot. It's the first question to the left. Well, at least on my ballot, it was the first question to the left after I flipped it. And you just put it in there. Remember to follow the rule. Like people, I can't believe people don't follow directions, right? So I follow the directions. You have to put it in another envelope, and you got to sign your signature. And then I realized, when I went to the voter registration years ago, I think my signature may have changed. So I try to remember how I used to sign my name 20 years ago, because I want to make sure it matches. I hope it counts, right? So, but I did what I was supposed to, and hope everybody else does to get out the vote.
Right, me too. Yeah, here in Warren County, I know there's a lot of people voting. It always has been a good voting area. And farmers always vote because there's a lot at stake for them in some of the local elections and things that go on. Like those gourds I got back there from the local farmer. The farmers up here have all kinds of pumpkins and gourds. Anybody in the state wants to take a little ride and do some pumpkin picking, Warren County is definitely a place to go. Those little gourds are all cool little things. You can get them for 25 cents a piece, 4 for $1. And they're terrific. I guess, what about gourds? Gourds and pumpkins, Sam, I think they have the distinction of being the largest vegetable that can be ever grown. I know pumpkins are, but gourds in their own way are too. And people should eat more pumpkins. Pumpkins have a lot of nutrition, a lot of minerals. They have calcium, they have magnesium, all kinds of things. So people forget that pumpkin pie once a year is it. They might want to consider a little bit more. Anyway, that's enough on the Warren County stuff. Let's talk about what's going on in the state, Stan.
All right. Well, let's go, Bill. What do you got?
Well, for me, I'm excited because I do believe it's going to happen. And I'm reading about our senators, how they're talking. And Senator Statori's been with NJ Can, our organization here in Jersey that's really doing the great job of pushing this forward, spending the money. And he said some crazy things again that just gets me all excited. I actually printed it out here and I said, he says we're going to begin selling product to adults 21 and over within a month of the election potentially. Are you, Sam? That doesn't sound like New Jersey that
Wait,
you
wait,
guys
whoa,
been talking about.
whoa. A month?
A 1 month.
1 month?
Now, well, that's how it would work is that they would have the current dispensaries, the medical dispensaries. Now, there's only 12 of them, but if they could pass something and then allow them to have an extension to go right into adult, it's possible that he could be right. And with 1 month, I can be in line because I'm sure there's going to be a line around 8 blocks to get some. So that would be really cool. Now, we know that, let's see what else he actually said. He said he has to pass the so called enabling legislation. Now, that's the same thing that we've talked about before, that they did a bill 2 years ago, a year and a half back, when they were going to pass it through the legislature until they figured out they didn't have enough votes. Now, once they take that and they change that around, I think we'll be in good shape. Let's see, what else did he say? Oh, he was talking about what the forthcoming measure will look like, what that enabling legislation is going to look like. And, everybody out here is wondering what the heck's going to happen once this is legal. And we found out that there's definitely not going to be any homegrown in New Jersey. No homegrown, that's out. But it's a shame because it does happen in other states and it's worked well. Remember a couple of shows ago, Sam, I discussed how I thought some of our homegrown guys should get right into the game. I think I mentioned it last week at talking to Lefty too, that
Yeah.
we can immediately go right on board and get these homegrown guys that register and become legal, and we can have other product immediately instead of waiting for the dispensaries to ramp it up. Although right up by me, well, not that close to me, down on Route 22 in Hunterdon County in Lebanon, there's a Walmart that used to be there. I've been in there
Yep.
before years ago, and it's been closed. And they built a new super Walmart out in Phillipsburg. And guess what's being in there right now? They're building an indoor facility, the grow facility. That's a big place, and that's been going for a while, and the town's approved it plenty long ago. And I know that there's people applying to work there, and they have job postings if anybody wants to jump into Walmart down on Route 22 in Lebanon Township. So that place right there is going to be a big place that should be able to supply us some pretty good bud. And from what I understand, a lot of the other medical dispensaries, they're not stupid. They're building out their places right away too, knowing I know another 10,000 square foot or a $1 million place down like in Rutherford or Carlstadt down in the east that's also being built right now. So there's stuff going up right now, getting ready for this from the current dispensaries, which are really the big boys, but we need them. So we're looking forward to that. Maybe one day you'll go to the Walmart with me and we'll go check it out. We
Oh,
do have a
yeah.
little issue with the medical patients if they don't come up with enough. We have in New Jersey 90,000 medical patients right now, and we have as I said, 12 dispensaries, right? So those guys already have lines, and they run out of product, and all kinds of things happen to the poor medical people already. So my wishful thinking that all of a sudden the super Walmart's going to be, the utopia of bringing the bud to the state, it's going to be a small drop in the bucket. They really need to get going with a lot more than that. Um, you know, what do you think, Sam, about that?
Well, yeah, it's a supply and demand thing. I mean, if people have a medical prescription for it,
Oh,
we
yeah.
want to make sure that there's a plenty of supply, for those people. They need it for medical reasons. This is not,
Well,
we're not talking about recreational. We're talking about medical.
yeah,
And if they can't,
we can't let it, you're right, Sam. We can't let it split up. We got to let the medical people get what they need. And, my idea of letting the home growers in gives the medical people a lot more choice to different strains. Some medical people only need a certain type of strain, but it's so rare that, the big guys don't want to grow that strain. Maybe we can have some of the little guys just growing, 20 pounds of a certain strain for a certain segment of the medical, but we'll get to that. I'm just proud of Senator Scuttori, that he's doing such a great job with this all these years and is pushing it forward fast. Him and Murphy, Governor Murphy, are doing good. The other senator that I just wanted to mention briefly is not a state senator, like these guys are just of the New Jersey, are Senator Booker, one of the two. We know everybody out of the state knows that he actually ran for president. In retrospect, with everything with Biden, I would have rather had Cory Booker anyway. His stances on the cannabis plan are much better than Biden's. Biden just wants to decrim, so too bad for that. But I did have a quote from Booker that I was going to read to you, Sam.
Okay.
The guy is really meaning some stuff here. I mean, let's see what he says. He says, "We can do this as a state so much more responsibly, and instead of destroying lives, we can get many more resources to help empower the well-being of New Jerseyans." That's what I've been saying. Booker's right on. Here's one for him, though. He also said, "Veterans, for example, are more likely to be arrested for drug use or possession of marijuana instead of getting help. They're often hurt by a system that piles upon them criminal charges for doing things that 2 of the last 3 presidents admitted to doing." He said, adding that African Americans, Latinos, and low-income people are also disproportionately targeted by enforcement. That's true. And about the last 3 presidents admitted doing it, I guess he means can't be Trump. It's got to be Clinton and Bush. Bush Jr. He definitely had, there's stuff on him about other kinds of drugs too. But if that means that Obama and Bush were using cannabis, if this is true, and they use it more than I know, maybe Booker knows something. What would guys like that be using it for? You got to figure stress. Those guys are under some serious stress, maybe a little anxiety, maybe calms them down when they make a decision, kind of like people should use it if they're stressed out before they make any major decisions. So how about that? Presidents are actually using it, Sam. Pretty cool.
Yeah,
You know?
and even I believe the president nominee as well has admitted to it as well. Kamala Harris, I think, did in a radio interview.
Yeah.
So, now we have Stephen and Kevin. Welcome to the Facebook Live group. Stephen's got a question. It says, will medical marijuana be any different than recreational in terms of it's grown, regulated, etc.? Hard to think that the same crop can be sold both recreational and medical. What are your thoughts on
Yeah,
that?
he's right. He's right. They're definitely the medical guys now are under such restrictions. They have to do everything so precise because each strain is specific to a medical problem, and they're really trying to get it right. The testing is unbelievable on the medical side.
Sure.
For the adult use, some of the adult use people are going to want those strains anyway, even though they're specific to medical. But adult use can not have to be that crazy, especially some big outdoor grows that they have out in California and Colorado. That stuff's not exactly like the medical stuff and is not under the same stringence, but some of it's way better for your adult use smoker who's looking for that type of bud that the medical people aren't looking for. So, yeah, there's going to be a difference between. Certainly, a lot of the growers that come in are going to be concentrating on adult use because that's where more of the product will be sold. And the specialty dispensaries, these medical dispensaries, are going to have to keep doing the medical stuff and then supplement, with maybe having some bigger grow rooms for the adult. They could keep doing it all the same bud, too, if they really wanted to, some of these big guys. And so I feel that with adult use, that'll bring more grow rooms in by a lot. That'll actually help the medical people because it'll give these guys more space to do some experimentation with different strains, and that'll be good for everybody, actually. So, good question.
Yeah.
We are a little worried about the licensing. Now, we just talked about how Scuttori says, "Hey, this is going to happen quick, and we've got the enabling legislation, and we're going to get going." We talked about before here at Sam, Illinois, and all the problems they're having out there and the lawsuits going on. I'm still just thinking, come on, New Jersey, come on, look at these guys. Don't do what Illinois is doing. Currently in Illinois, they're having lawsuits 3 different directions. The governor came out and made a proclamation, and then that got overturned by the court. They actually went to the Supreme Court, who turned it down in Illinois, got down to a lower court, and the lower court judge stopped the whole thing. Now, all the people who were approved for licensing are not getting licensing. The people who lost are suing. The people who now aren't getting licensing because they're going to bring in the other people, now they're countersuing. It's a big mess. So the biggest problem New Jersey is going to have with coming out with some solid, good rules. It sounds like Scatore's got it together, and he's done enough research and looked at the rest of the states that New Jersey is going to be a model. Remember last week I was all excited. He said that Governor Murphy was going to be a superstar when this plan comes out. So I am hopeful about that, Sam. I'm not that hopeful about it. You know, okay, here's something that was in the article that I read about Illinois, and that's the people who are applying. One of the big problems is with all these delays, there's people out there that are spending every last dime they have to try and get a grow room, to apply for a license. Remember Lefty last week? He said, I'm applying on every license that comes out. I want to get in. There's probably thousands and thousands of people in our state that are going to be like that. And if all these delays keep going on and on and on, these people are renting places with no income. They have bought real estate and they're just sitting there. They're made deals with processors or equipment manufacturers, and they've given down payments on equipment and they're waiting to get it delivered. Or maybe some of them were forced to take it within 90 days and now they bought the equipment and they don't even have a license yet. All this money is being put out by all these people in Illinois currently, and they're being stuck. And by the time they get a license, a lot of them won't be able to get one anyway. They'll run out of money. They won't be able to pay the rentals on the different places they've got. I mean, it's a big mess. So all these lawsuits, the downstream effect to the folks that are trying to get in the industry is really bad. And that's one of the other reasons Jersey's really got to get this stuff together. You know, it's big. You know,
That's what it's going to cost you if you wait.
All right.
That's what it's going to cost you.
One of the other things I was going to talk about is, you know, as you know, today we were going to go down to Trenton and do another interview. So I wasn't really going to discuss anything in particular. So I just took, you know, with our changing of plans and deciding to stay up here in Warren County instead of travel, I just took a look in the paper this morning, and I saw the Asbury Park Press and NewJersey.com had an article from New Jersey Police Chiefs Association about what's going to happen after we legalize. And I like the little statement. New Jersey municipal police chiefs have a one-worded message, one-worded, Sam, for state legislature if recreational use of marijuana is legalized next week. You know what the word is?
What?
Help! Help! The police are saying, help. What are we going to do? It's now legal. What's the do? So I figured, you know what? We might as well talk about that a little bit. There's so much misconception. I know we talked about some safety things a couple of shows ago, but we'll just dive into this because this is today's news here in the state of New Jersey. It says here, one of the quotes from the police chiefs is, for several years, they're trying to get more officers trained, and you know, they can only run a certain amount of courses per year statewide. It's not enough to meet demand. You know how much money is pumped into the war on drugs? Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars is pumped into the war on drugs. That money, there we go again, that money should be redistributed to the training of these officers. That's what needs to be done. More training, you know, that's a tough one. Let's see. Here's another quote from this is from the Marlboro police chief. I guess his name is Paluzzo. And these police chiefs, they've been around for a long time. Most of them started young. They've seen everything, so they know really in their head and in their heart what's the story with marijuana driving and drunk driving. They just want to get some direction on how to handle this stuff. And you know, here's something he says. You know, I would personally like to see the state back up with a little bit more freedom for police to administer blood tests. He said, referring to, it's very difficult for police officers in the state to get blood from somebody without their consent. You know, I just said that the police chiefs know what they're doing, and they probably do in the back of their head when they pull somebody over, and they're feeling and they have intuition from all their years of doing policing. But blood tests, he needs to do a little research. Blood test is not going to do anything. look at somebody like me, Sam. I'm a recreational user all these years, but very responsible. I would never drive high. It's just something that people my age are just have, we're going to do. And we got to train some of the younger folks if that's what they're doing to do. But if he gives me a blood test, even if I haven't smoked in 3 days, I have THC in my blood. That is not going to help, So we need to come up with some other plans. And I appreciate that the police chiefs are looking at this because there is something we have to do with this.
Mhm. And it
They have
takes a
something called,
collaboration. We got to collaborate, have a discussion,
uh, right.
and have
Well,
communication.
yeah, they have something now called DREs. DREs are people that are specially trained in the police department. If somebody gets pulled over suspected of drugs, they can call in the DRE. It's kind of like calling in the police dog to do a sniff or bringing the lieutenant down because of a special situation. They bring the DREs in, and these people are supposed to be able to tell
What
one
does
way or
DR
another.
stand
Well, let's see what it stands for, Sam. I'm not even sure. A drug,
because when I think
let's see, advanced
of
roadside impaired driving enforcement. Okay, advanced roadside impaired driving enforcement is ARIDE, and DRE is basically the same thing. What I'd like
you
to
know when
do
I
is
think of
kind of,
DRE, I think of Dr.
well,
Dre,
Dr. Dre, we need
the
all the
chronic.
officers should be trained to DRE, not one, all, everybody. It's not that
Yeah.
big a deal, especially if we can take that money that we're spending on the war on drugs and do some training and education so that officers would have a better idea if somebody is impaired. Now, for me, the big burdens the court system because it says here that they realize that these guys all get to court and then these lawyers get in there and say, well, how does that officer really know if he is? How is his training? It's all going to be a bunch of baloney as it goes forward.
Yep.
So that's why they're saying help. What are they going to do? There's no real way of doing it. And I did pull out something, Sam, of what the other states are doing. Where did I put that? Put it down here somewhere. Oh, here we go. Let's see what they're doing. All right, Colorado. Well, we know, and Canada. We'll start with Canada. Canada legalized weed just this year. They test drivers with a saliva test called the Draeger Dread Test 500C. So if you get pulled over in Canada, they do a saliva test. From what I've seen, that doesn't work either. A regular smoker like myself, that's just going to trigger a positive. And certainly if I'm out there driving and I'm not high and I haven't smoked all day, I don't need to take a saliva test and find out that I'm DUI. Now, here's a couple. Last week, if you remember, Lefty gave us a little talk about what happened in Pennsylvania with the medical dispensary. And if you drove in PA. Now, PA did change that around a little bit, but Rhode Island, Pennsylvania, and Indiana, they forbid driving on at any THC level. So if you get caught driving in any of those states and they do a test on you, again, even if you smoked a few days ago, you get a DUI. So that stuff's got to go away. That's ridiculous, and they really need to do it. In California, every highway patrol member learns to administer field sobriety tests, undergoing an extra 16 hours of training to recognize marijuana that has been legal there since 1996. Officers there are very used to recognizing its influence, the state coordinator says, Glenn Glazer. So that's where New Jersey has to get to. We got to get to so the officers realize if a person is smoking earlier in the day or the 2 days prior and they pull them over, they're either impaired or they're not. Just because they have something in their system doesn't mean they're impaired. It's not like alcohol. It's a much different thing. Um, Here's the things we have to worry about. In the same article, public health threat is real. You know me, Sam. I don't really think the public health threat is real because I know, and everybody who smokes it knows in New Jersey, and the stats from all the rest of the states tell you that cannabis use does not really increase when it goes legal. I went to a restaurant this past weekend and I talked to a lot of people in there, and those folks, I ran into a lot of no's, believe it or not, in there, But I'm up here in Warren County, so it's a Republican area mainly with these farmers, and they're definitely against it, a lot of them. And I asked them all. I said, "Well, once it's legal, would you try it?" everyone said, no, I'm not trying it. I'm not trying it. So there's not all of a sudden going to be this big, huge usage of people driving for the first time on cannabis. So what are we looking at? We're looking at all the people who've been driving for the past 40 years on cannabis, all of a sudden are going to start crashing all over the place and having all these problems. It's just not going to happen. They're looking for something that's not going to be there. Now, am I an advocate for some new people to try it? I sure am. Am I a big advocate for training them and giving them education on how to handle it? Yes, and most of the new people are going to want that. The new people are going to want the education. The old people think they know everything already. So I'm thinking we can get through this without getting too crazy with the driving part. I think the officers, if they're trained properly, they'll look for impairment, not someone who's got it in their system. And that's going to be a big one for us, Sam. I got something else down here. I threw a few papers on the ground to read to you, Sam.
Oh,
This is a good one, too. Hey, I had to get ready. I thought I was doing an interview today, so I wanted to come up with a few things to talk about with you. So why not, right?
why not?
All right. Here's from a study that was done in Europe. Now, the Europeans are a little bit ahead of us when it comes to cannabis study. With us, with our war on drugs and everything going on here, it just hasn't been something that universities can get involved with. But in Europe, it has been. And this is what they found out. The effects of cannabis vary more between individuals than they do with alcohol because of tolerance, differences in smoking technique, and different absorptions of Delta 9, THC, that's tetrahydrocannabinol, is what Delta 9 is, and that is what's in the marijuana plant, in the cannabis plant that will get somebody high. The problem is that if you and I both smoke, Sam, and you're not a smoker and I am, I'm going to be fine if a couple of hits. You're going to be wiped out. So maybe not wiped out, but the difference is so great that you can't just say, like in an alcohol test, that you have a certain level in your blood and you're over the limit. The other thing is that let's read another one from. The risk from driving under the influence of both alcohol and cannabis is greater than the risk of driving under the influence of either one alone. And that I believe. The alcohol, that's the thing. Luckily, most smokers who are regular smokers don't drink, which is great. Those guys should be fine to drive so many hours, or even really, if you do a survey of most people who smoke, a true survey, not something. You would probably say a half hour to 45 minutes with most strains, somebody could probably drive who's a smoker as long as they didn't drink. Other people might need a couple hours, and let's face it, some of the new people who are going to try this probably going to go 6 or 8 hours. But, that's what they're talking about, the different tolerance levels with this. But when you drink and you smoke together, it affects two different sides of you, and that's really not a good mix to have. Really, the drinking is the biggest problem in my eyes, and I've seen it for years, and so has everybody else. And if cannabis driving was a huge problem, we would already know about it. We'd already have it all
Yeah.
over the newspapers that, such and such crashed into a car they were smoking. Not such and such was drinking.
Yeah.
So, I came up with an
Wow.
idea how to fix it, of course. I always come up with my idea. Remember, I gave you the Pot Buddy podcast way of going through getting the illegal growers and the grow rooms of the state into the plan. That was a few weeks ago, and I've been thinking about this for a long time. This is not something I made up today, Sam. I've told people this for a few years, and it comes down to how to find out whether somebody can drive or not. Well, how can a police officer or a trooper, we have a lot of troopers here in Warren County. We don't have local police in a lot of our towns. The troopers are out here, the state
Yep.
troopers, and these troopers and officers need to have some other way of doing it. And one of the things they've also done in Norway, a lot of studies in Norway. Again, you can't get studies in the U.S., but in Norway, they do a lot of studies on driving simulation. And they've taken a lot of folks and they've sent them out on the roads and they test them on the test track, racetrack, test track, and they have them drink to a certain amount. And then they test them and have all kinds of things and cameras going. Then they bring them inside and they test them on these driving simulators. And they see if they can drive in a simulator instead of out on the road, but a simulator. And they're just little screens that they, following along. They have a pedal and a gas pedal. And they found that pretty much the same measurements go from outside to inside, from the driving simulators to the outside driving when they do all these tests. So they thus can find out whether a person is impaired or not when they're on a driving simulator. They don't have to be driving. So I've been saying for years we should have something in the police cars, maybe something right in the passenger seat. They have all those computers and everything down there, center stacked now. You know, it looks like a Star Trek's vehicle coming down the road sometimes when you look in there. Maybe they can throw the passenger, put in the passenger seat, somebody flip the screen around, put a few and do a test on them on their cognitive ability and whether they think they really can do it. They don't want to bring the person in their car, which probably a lot of them don't. Another idea is they can hook something up to the person's steering wheel, like a little iPad,
Yep.
put a couple of wires down, put a couple of controllers on the gas pedal and the brake pedal, and have the person sit in their own car and have it just go through a little tape that gives them a few situations to find out their awareness, their keenness, and if the person has the ability to drive. You know, that probably wouldn't stand in court alone, but if you had that plus the officer's ability, trained, whether it's a DRE or just an officer trained that can witness what's going on. If they have to, if the person's really messed up, they've also got videotape from their automobile, from the police cruiser or trooper cruiser, showing the car going backwards on the road, showing them going over the line, slow, fast, all the things that, you know, somebody who's impaired might do, right? So you
Yep.
couple everything together, and then if you make the arrest, well then, hey, you got to bring them down to the police station. If you get all that together and they failed it all, okay, let's give them a blood test too. Let's confirm they got THC in there, even though it doesn't really matter on high or not. We're trying to pile up some evidence so that the chiefs of police can at least go to court and not lose if they have somebody who's out there who's really high. We don't want the guys that are out there driving that are causing potential problems getting away with it just because a lawyer can talk their way out of the different ways. So we got to find out some way of really knowing. I mean, it could come down to, once the officers are trained enough, I mean, as long as they're not going to be prejudiced against certain people and they can really talk about that, and it's not just, okay, I'm pulling you over and, you know, I don't like you, so I'm going to stringent you more than the others. If we can really just get them to understand that it's not that bad, and the people who smoked hours earlier are going to be fine, and just go totally on impairment. Can you drive or not? I mean, no matter what you're on, can you drive or not? Can you stay in the lines? Can you stay your speed? Can you follow the rules? If a deer jumps out in front of you, can you hit the brakes right away? Or are you just going to slam into it and go, oh? So, I mean, our officers and troopers just have to figure that out. I know that's a tough one, but they shouldn't worry because they've been out there all these years and they know that what they've run into with marijuana. Sometimes you get these young people that are doing bongs in the backseat of the car and they're just stoned out of their gourds riding around at 20 miles an hour. Bring them all in. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
But
Maybe
I
on the
don't
road.
want them. Yeah, we can't have the rules now follow this paranoia about marijuana just because it's legal, but the rest of the stuff, oh my God, they're on the road smoking marijuana. Oh! We have to hail them. That's not the case. It's not going to all of a sudden increase accidents all over the place. So especially if we get the good education, especially if we get our officers trained properly and our troopers trained properly, and get the word out and use some more information. While I was at that restaurant, one more and something totally different, but when I was at that restaurant, one of the tables I stopped at, they said to me, Sam, we would have voted for it if the marijuana people would sign off that when they go to the hospital because they're all messed up on marijuana, that they have to pay their own hospital bills. I mean, the marijuana patient doesn't go to the hospital. I mean, there are kids and young people who try this, and some medical people who go and get medical, and they've never really tried it before, and all of a sudden, whoa, they got to go to the hospital. That stuff's going to happen. We got to get training and education out there. But the general public has to know that that's once in a while. All right, my friend. Good week.
Well,
next week I'm traveling, buddy. You won't see this anymore.
Next week you're traveling, but also look out for Pop Buddy Podcast after November 3rd concludes.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, everyone that watches. We have a lot of viewers, Sam. Thank you from my deepest heart. Tell your friends. Apparently, I've never asked you before in 6 times of having a podcast, but yeah, subscribe. I understand that's good for us, and like us, and give us some comments, and
Follow
pass
us.
it around to your friends. All that stuff.
Absolutely.
I never asked before, but why not? Right? That's what we do. Thank you.
And
Thank you to everybody who's watching.
to Vivian,
What's
thank you for the compliment of nice shirt. She likes the shirt.
Oh, Vivian.
All right.
Looking good, baby. All right, Sammy. See you next week, buddy.
Thursday.
All right, buddy.